Hello everyone, it is Dani and welcome to this update video on the tropics. We will be talking about our current tropical cyclones across the basin, but of course the main focus will be on what is now Tropical Storm Ian in the Caribbean. And so impacts are likely across Jamaica and the Cayman Islands as they're going to be heading into tomorrow. But there is something important that I want you guys to note, and so I will be talking about all of that in this video. And so before I go into details, please do subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you never miss an important update on the tropics. And to share support for the channel, you can leave a like on this video. Okay, and so looking back at infrared satellites here, we are seeing that we have Ian that is quite prominent. It is located in the central Caribbean, heading to the western Caribbean right now. And up to the north, we have the remnants of Fiona. So Fiona is a dissipating cyclone, but bringing some impacts to portions of Atlantic Canada. We have Gaston that is in the vicinity of the Azores, not expected to last very long there. And then we have Hermine off the coast of Africa, and that is also a dissipating tropical cyclone. Now moving on to a closer look at Ian. And so here we have the satellite imagery up close, and we're seeing here that the system is thriving. It's a little bit compact, but it isn't very organized right now. I want you guys to know that. So all of this shower and thunderstorm activity is to the west of the center of the system. So the eastern side is kind of struggling to get some of that activity going on for it. However, it seems as though Ian is actually growing right now because it is in favorable conditions, and we'll be taking a look at those conditions shortly. But nevertheless, the National Hurricane Center is still expecting that there are going to be tropical storm conditions and that heavy rainfall, which is likely to result in flooding. So though the center of the system isn't likely to pass very close to the island anymore, it could still bring some impacts tomorrow. And so moving on to the cone forecast for the cyclone here, we're seeing that Ian has maximum sustained winds of 45 miles per hour. So it's slowly intensifying, but it should rapidly intensify as it is going to be heading into the eastern Gulf of Mexico by the midweek next week. And then there we have Jamaica under tropical storm watch, which is in yellow, and then the Cayman Islands under a hurricane watch. So the center is expected to remain offshore of Jamaica, as I said, but nevertheless it is possible that we could still have impacts. I mean, the NHC is still anticipating the rainfall total is 4 to 8 inches of rainfall, with some isolated 12 inches of rain in some areas. And so flooding is still likely in areas of higher terrain. So please guys, take all the necessary precautions and stay safe. Don't let this make you think that, okay, you're not going to be preparing for the storm and going to take it lightly just because the center is expected to be well offshore. The system could still bring some impacts, and it is now in a conducive environment. So let's go ahead and take a look at that map. And so we're seeing here that for the wind shear, we have the red, that means unfavorable shear, the yellow, that means neutral shear, and the green, that means favorable shear. And so one of the reasons the eastern side of Ian doesn't possess much activity was because of the shear that was being induced by Fiona. But we see conducive shear across majority of the Caribbean and also in the vicinity of the cyclone. So this is going to be helping the system to really get itself together. I mean, there's not going to be much interference with those strong upper level winds. So things will be much more conducive in the vicinity of the cyclone for it to intensify. And it is likely that it is going to be a hurricane as they're going to be heading maybe into very late Sunday going into Monday morning. And by that time, we might see it becoming a little bit more symmetrical, having more of that distribution of that shower and thunderstorm activity right around the system. And in that case, Jamaica should definitely be expecting impacts from it. And then going on to the sea surface temperature map, of course, sea surface temperatures are very warm within the area. This is the main factor that results in rapid intensification. So the shear is conducive out there. We have very warm ocean waters. So we could really see Ian rapidly intensify, and I wouldn't be surprised if it manages to become a little bit stronger than what the National Hurricane Center is expecting. And if it was expected to move at a much slower pace, it could become a more significant hurricane than what is expected and bring worse impacts to Florida. But hopefully things won't be too bad there. But of course, on Tuesday, the system is expected to cross over western Cuba and Isle of Youth, likely to bring hurricane conditions in those areas. And maybe by that time, the system will be a Category 2 hurricane. So impacts in northwestern Cuba could be pretty significant from this system. And so it is likely that they will be under maybe a hurricane watch, which would eventually be upgraded to a warning as they're going to be heading into the early part of next week. But again, Florida is expected to be impacted by this, and it is going to be bringing those very dangerous conditions, that storm surge, which is that coastal inundation as a result of the winds of the cyclone pushing the waters onshore, that very heavy rainfall when the system makes landfall, along with those strong winds. And so the wind becomes a problem, especially in major hurricanes, because of course they have the ability to cause more destruction in terms of downed power lines, downed trees, damaged buildings. So guys, please take all the necessary precautions, but it is important to know that for the long term, things can change. It doesn't have to be what is expected as of now, because we're talking about something that is several days out, almost a week out from now, in terms of landfall in Florida. So what you're seeing now isn't guaranteed to be the actual outcome. So there can be changes, but there is that agreement that it is likely that Florida will be feeling impacts. And as I speak about that, let's go on to the model track guidance here. And we're seeing that maybe one or two models off here, but we are seeing that most of these are kind of tighter on that expected track across the northwestern Caribbean headed to Cuba. We see that these models kind of get a little bit dispersed as they are expecting landfall in different areas of Florida, but the general consensus is that Florida is likely to experience landfall. And if we're talking about a system that is massive in size at the time, then those tropical storm and hurricane conditions could be more widespread. And then in terms of the model intensity guidance here, so here we have our various models, and majority are expecting that this is certainly going to be a major hurricane in Category 3, and we have some of these models here expecting that this is going to be intensifying into a Category 4, which isn't impossible. We've seen so many systems rapidly intensify in the Gulf of Mexico, and so Ian is likely not going to be an exception to that, because again, conditions are expected to be favorable up ahead for it, and the only thing that I think is going to weaken it is just the fact that it's going to be crossing over Cuba. So that land interaction should help to keep the intensity maybe stagnant at the time. Say if it is a Category 2 and it makes landfall as a Cat 2, then it could remain that way until it moves over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, which will be in no time. It's not as if it is going to be an extensive land area where Ian is going to be moving over. And of course, guys, as time goes by, I'm going to be keeping you updated with what is going on with this system here. And so that is really it for this update video. And if you have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments. I'll try to respond as best and as soon as I can. And you can also share thoughts. And just remember to always be weatherwise.